A fundamental shift in the chip market has caused a severe shortage of conventional server memory, which has upended hardware supplies for Dell and HPE as chipmakers prioritize high bandwidth memory for AI infrastructure instead of RAM for pretty much everything else. Driven by unrelenting enterprise demand, both of these computer makers are passing soaring component costs onto customers through price hikes and using different survival strategies. On the one hand, Dell is prioritizing their largest strategic accounts first, and on the other, HPE is locking in capacity through long-term agreements with memory partners. Despite these supply constraints, the resulting memory inflation has fueled massive revenue spikes for both firms, leaving Dell with a substantial order backlog heading into the end of the year. Al, this is something that we've heard a little bit about at HPE Discover, and they're already having plans on how to deal with this shortage. But what do you think about the fact that the AI companies are starving the manufacturers of the components they need to make this happen?
Well, yeah, what we're seeing is this huge build out of AI data centers, and we've covered this before on the rundown. This massive build out of AI data centers is backed by contracts to buy. So these data center builders are going to buy large amounts of particularly high bandwidth memory, but also server memory and SSDs and hard drives to fill out these massive data centers. That means, of course, that the fixed supply of these resources is under intense competition. We've anecdotally heard that the time period for a quote for memory has changed from being valid for 60 days down to 30 days down to 7 days. Buy it this week if you want it at this price, because we don't know what next week's price is. Really interesting that Antonio Neri, CEO at HPE, has said, well, there's no cliff. People are still buying this stuff despite the massive hike in price. And it suggests to me that lots of large enterprises also think they're going to get benefit out of AI and need to be on it real fast. So we'll see how that one plays out. And the coverage article talked about a difference in approach, that HPE is working on long-term supply contracts. And if you read my future and research prediction for this year, it's the people with long-term supply contracts who are going to be in the best situation. So if you do need to buy new servers, if you're thinking about replacing what you've got at the moment, think very carefully. The cost of that RAM is going to be a much larger proportion to the total system cost than it used to be. Also, SSD and hard drives are both in short supply. So again, make sure you're ordering well in advance and maybe think about whether that compromise of using less RAM and having more swapping on NVMe SSD might just be shifting one bottleneck to another, at least in the supply chain.